What is up? What is up?
How are you guys doing this week?
Whew, we hope that you guys are good, that you guys are healthy, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Let's shake my hand. I know that it is super early. We normally don't even get up this early.
Right.
Shake my head, so we can't even imagine you guys, but God just led us to start this early in the morning. Also, like other things that we have to do today. So we thank you guys for just joining, for watching, and for listening to this message. We hope that you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful week. And so, with that, I guess we'll just talk about what God has for us today after we allow some of you guys to come on and roll in.
Yeah, let us know. What do you guys have planned this weekend? What are y'all doing? What's the move tonight?
Right.
I think we're going bowling. I think we're going bowling this weekend.
Yeah.
Sometime this weekend.
Sometime this weekend. One of our friends, they're like obsessed with bowling for some reason now. And so every time we hang out with them, like, they're like, let's go bowling. And we're like, I mean, I guess. But the last time we went, it was actually pretty fun.
Right.
I feel like I don't really go bowling that much. But the last time, for some reason, it just hit different.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Cosmic bowling is really fun. You get the music, and then
They be playing some really fire music.
like even if you can't bowl, it's like you just get to hang out with friends. You get to like just enjoy like the atmosphere of like everybody's out with their family and friends having fun or whatever.
No, yeah.
So
Yeah, it's definitely, it's just a nice vibe. Shake my hand.
can I have the computer?
Mhm.
Well, actually, it's connected to the light, so be careful. I just need to. But yeah, let us know what you're doing this weekend. I would love to know.
Yeah, definitely. Whew. Y'all, this week, I don't know what y'all have been going through spiritually, but this week has been very interesting, I think, for Lonnie and I. Very transforming a lot of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess we can just get into it. This week I feel like God was really ministering to me and Naiya about grace this week.
Grace.
And we really had I'm gonna speak for myself. I had a lot of revelation about myself, and I felt like I got a lot of revelation about God, and I think what we share with you guys hopefully will help you guys within your own relationships with God and your own spiritual life.
Yeah.
Whenever you do go and tackle that relationship, or if you're in it right now.
Right.
So, I guess we could. Oh, well, you can say what God taught you this week.
About grace. I mean, we've had our own, Lonnie and I, like, battles today in regards to grace. I think the incident will probably tell you guys about. It showed me a lot of things about not only receiving grace, but giving grace, even if you feel as if you did and it's still like stung. Shake my head, Definitely about that. And I think more so giving grace to yourself, because I think that that's very, very important. That's something that we don't really do. Yes, God says to give grace to others, and we'll talk about giving grace to both your friends and your enemies. But normally our biggest enemy can be ourselves, because we just speak to ourselves so recklessly sometimes.
Right.
You know, so definitely giving that grace to yourself and speaking kindly to yourself, I think, is something that God has really been teaching me, even in spite of others maybe not giving you grace.
Yeah.
So definitely something like that we'll talk about.
Yeah, so I guess we'll start with Five Guys. I know that's gonna
Shake my head.
I know that's gonna sound weird.
It's gonna sound so weird. Okay, so I guess just to start off, Five Guys.
Y'all, restaurants are kryptonite.
Shake my head. Five Guys is a restaurant, if y'all don't know. Because I remember there was a time where I didn't know that Five Guys was a restaurant. So don't think we're just talking about whatever. Five Guys is a restaurant. It's a burger joint, a burger chain over here. They sell really nice burgers. But yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. I don't know if you want me to start the story or not.
I mean, Five Guys is like it's a burger restaurant.
Yeah.
It's pretty well known. I don't know if you guys have it wherever you are in the United States or outside of the United States or whatever. But yeah, so we went to go to this burger place, and
it was towards the nighttime.
Yeah, it was towards nighttime, first of all, and Naiya was like, hey, like, do you want me to come with you to, or can you come with me to the burger place to go get something to eat?
Okay, mind y'all, like, I was sitting in my room. I had not, like, my hair was not looking like this. It was not done. My makeup was not done. Like, nothing was right? Mm-hmm. And I was in, like, this big t-shirt and, like, these booty shorts, just chilling at home. And I was just comfortable. But obviously, like, I wasn't dressed to go out or anything. I was sitting in my bed, and all of a sudden, like, I was like, I need to eat something, you know? And, like, I just felt like the Lord was like, a burger. You know? I don't know if it was the Lord. Maybe it was my own desire, y'all. But I was like, a burger. And then I was like, and fries and a milkshake. Like, it sounds nice right now.
Right.
You know? And I'm, like, kind of picky. Like, whenever I crave certain foods that I don't really eat, because I really don't eat burgers, like, that often. But I also think, like, I might have been PMSing, low-key. But, whenever, like, I want, like, a burger, I normally want, like, that melted cheese that I think Five Guys always gets, like, super perfect, like, on the edges when, like, you bite into it. And it's
not an advertisement, y'all.
I'm just saying, like, I just needed it. So, I got up, literally did absolutely nothing but maybe, like, brush my teeth and, like, put my hair up or whatever, but I was looking crazy. And actually, I didn't think that I was gonna go to Five Guys because your girl didn't have the funds, you know?
Yeah, because Five Guys is hecka
expensive. And so I was like, I was honestly going to go to Burger King because they're less expensive, right? So I went downstairs, and Burger King has drive-thrus where Five Guys does not. And so I went downstairs, and I see Lonnie, and normally Lonnie and I just do everything together. So on my way out, I was like, you know, even though I'm kind of strapped on cash, do you want to come, you know? She looked like she was looking in the fridge and finding despair. She go ahead. We have plenty of food, y'all. It was just like, you know how you just look in the fridge and even though you have everything to eat, you're like, there's nothing in here because you really just want to go out.
Right.
Shake my head. So, yeah. But I know that Lonnie asked me in that moment, like, are we getting out of the car? And me thinking we're going to Burger King, I was like, no, like, I'm not getting out of the car. And plus, I wasn't dressed for the occasion of getting out of the car either.
Like, she was in full-on pajama mode.
I was in full-on pajamas.
And, I was looking crazy, too, because we were both, like, in the house all day. Like, we're not looking like
we're not looking right. Yeah.
And so, I'm like triple, double, quadruple checking with her. I'm like, are you sure you're not getting out the car? Because I'm about to get in this car looking crazy.
Right.
Okay? And I'm not trying to get out no car because all of a sudden you change your mind. You decide you want to go sit in a restaurant somewhere. And so, she was like, no, girl, it's fine. We're just going to pull through the drive-thru real quick and come back home. And so I was like, all right. So I was like, and it's free food. Like,
Right.
I'm going to go. And so I go with Naya, and we're like driving, and Naya's like, you know what sounds good? And I'm like, what? She's like, Five Guys. And I'm like,
Shake my head, yeah.
Because I was like, Five Guys don't have like doesn't have a drive-through or nothing.
Doesn't have a drive-through.
It's only pickup and delivery.
But another reason why I think I ended up wanting to go all of a sudden was because our mom decided that she also wanted something to eat. And she wanted whatever we were getting. So at first I told her it was Burger King. But she had called my sister to tell her, like, her order or whatever. But my mom was like, oh, like, I'll also pay for you. So tell Naya, like, she doesn't have to pay for you. Like, I got us, you know? And I'll send her the money or whatever. So in my mind, I'm thinking, like, if she's sending the money, then I can go to Five Guys and I can get my stuff, you know? Mm-hmm. Since I don't have to pay for everybody or whatever. And, like, my mom and my sister, you know? So then all of a sudden I was like, sky's the limit. Let me go to Five Guys now that I have the funds just for myself to go, you know? And so that's why, like, when I was driving, I was like, like, you know, I was thinking of other places, and I was like, for a burger, I really like Five Guys. And I asked my mom too, you know, because she gave me her order for Burger King. I was like, what about Five Guys, Mom? And she was like, yeah, like, that sounds fine. And so that's how I ended up coming to that conclusion. But Lonnie is correct. Five Guys does not have a drive-thru.
Right. And so we were both looking broke, busted, and disgusted.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and by this time it's like we're not too far from the house that we could have turned around, but we're also far enough to where we didn't feel like going back. You know? Yeah. And so I was like, well, you know, and Naya was like, oh, well, it's fine, you know, if we don't have a drive-thru, I can just go in and pick it up real quick. And I was like, looking at Naya's outfit, I was like, Naya, now you think I'm going to just let you go out with your short shorts at night by yourself?
Right. She was like, Naya, take the Holy Spirit with you. Cover yourself up. I was like, right. I don't have anything. I didn't bring anything. I also was not expecting to get out of the car, but I'm like, if worst comes to worst, if survival comes to survival, I'm ready to get out and go get my food. Like, I am starving. The food. Shake my head. But and we had ordered it for pickup, so it's like, I was thinking, like, I could just go in there really quick and just grab it, you know? It'll be ready by the time I get there.
And at the same time, I wasn't really, like, I was covered, but, like, I don't know, for, like, the more voluptuous gals on top, you know, the place, for the gals that, like, are blessed a little bit more on top, I wasn't wearing a bra at the time. So, like, I was uncomfortable getting out the car without a bra. And then it was like, but Naya didn't have, like, had her short shorts on. And it was like, it was be awkward for both of us to get out the car.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh.
And the pajama pants that Lonnie had on, it was completely, like, she was completely covered on the bottom. So the pajamas that she wore, the pajama pants or whatever, they were, like, they covered all of her legs. And then she kind of had, like, those, like, tops that, like, you don't wear a bra with. Like, one of those, like, crop shirts or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, basically, it was like, okay, you can't get out the car. And I'm like, I'm uncomfortable getting out the car. And it's like...
Yeah.
And I was kind of frustrated because I'm like, I literally tried to confirm with you 10,000 times before we left that we weren't going to get out the car. And now you all of a sudden want to get out the car. We both looking crusty and unpresentable. And so I'm like, ugh.
Lonnie was so upset.
It was just so inconvenient for me. And
but I didn't think anything of it. I was ready to get out of the car, but on the way there, she was just really pressing the issue. Like, Naya, you cannot get out of the car looking like this. Like, I will not allow you to walk out of this vehicle looking like a hooker on the street. Like, you need to get yourself together. And I was like, I'm just saying, like, you know,
Yeah.
I wasn't doing all of that. Like, I wasn't really looking like that. But basically, is what she was saying was like, girl, you got too much meat.
Yeah, I can't be showing them all the goods.
So, like, come on now.
Right. And so yeah, I'm like, okay, well, you can't get out the car or whatever. So, like, what we gonna do?
And so I was looking at Lonnie. I was looking at her outfit, and I was like, I mean, you could get out of the car, like, you're completely covered, you know? But she did not like that idea at all. Like, literally, she was like, no, like, I'm not getting out of this car, like, blah, blah, blah. Now, mind y'all, like, I don't know if you want to tell them.
Oh, yeah. So, like, I have social anxiety. Surprise, surprise. I'm on Twitch.
Right.
But I have social anxiety to where, like, if I'm in certain situations to where I have to, like, be, I don't know, like, I have to do something in front of a bunch of people, or if I feel like, I don't know, like, I'm gonna be in a situation where that it'll draw me attention from others, like, I start to kind of get, like, anxiety about drawing attention to myself. And so, you know, me getting out the car, it wasn't even about me having to get out the car. It was like, okay, well, if I get out the car, they see what I'm wearing. And on top of that, I'm unpresentable because I don't really got, like, I don't got a bra on. And I'm part of the big-chested community. I'm like, okay. Like, it was starting to give me a little bit of anxiety. And I was like, well, I can get out the car. And I'm like, well, no, you can't get out the car because you're worse off than I am.
Right. She's like, girl. Yeah. So we're kind of like going back and forth, and she's really trying to like debate. And she's like, you always do this to me. Why do you? And I'm like, girl, like, I'm sorry. And so then she's like, oh, do you have any, like, you don't have anything in here, like, that we could put on? And I was like, actually, I do have, like, some extra clothes in the bag, like, sweaters and stuff. But I didn't have pants. I had, like, hoodies or whatever, you know, girl tings. So I was like, yeah, I do have a sweatshirt in the back. And so she was like, okay, like, where is it? I'm like, it's in the trunk. Like, it's not, like, in the back of the car or anything. So even if she wanted to be presentable, she had to get out of the car to go to the trunk, open the trunk, find the hoodie, get back in the car.
Yeah, because the thing is, it wasn't even, like, at first I wasn't even sure. She was like, I might have a hoodie back there. I might have a jacket. Yeah. So I'm like, I might be getting out in front of, like, the whole parking lot. Because the parking lot, it wasn't, like, huge, so where it's, like, you know, it's, like, a lot going on. It was kind of like a smaller parking lot that had, like, a bunch of stores, so there's always people, like, coming in and out, and it's, like,
yeah.
You know.
But mind you, it was also nighttime. It's, like, pitch black outside.
That's a lot.
It was dark outside.
But, yeah, and so I was just, like, and I know it's, like, petty and stupid, but it's just how, like, my mind was working with my anxiety. And I was like, I really do not want to get out this car because I'm like, I really just don't want to be seen by people right now. Like, I just really don't.
Yeah. But I could see that it was, like, elevating for her, you know? Like, she went from 0 to 100, like, really, really quick. And she was kind of just, like, she was waiting for people to, like, stop coming into the parking lot, and people kept showing up, and she was kind of, like, in her head, and she was like, oh, my gosh, like, this person, that person. She's kind of, like, thinking, but she's thinking out loud. You know, so, like, I'm hearing all of these thoughts that she's having, and I'm like, dang, like, she really, like, lying to herself right now. Like, you know, she's worried about a lot of things, and so I just wanted to, like, show up and tell her, like, all of these things that you're thinking about, they're not actually happening. Like, nobody actually is looking at you. Nobody actually cares. Everybody is getting their food, getting back in their cars, and going home, you know?
Right.
And so, you know, as she's saying all of these thoughts, like, in her head, I think I really try to be compassionate, especially since God had just been working with me on the power of my tongue, you know? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to come and I wanted to be compassionate. I wanted to be kind, and I wanted to, like, you know, like, meet her where she was at, like, understanding that, like, how she felt but also being like, yeah, but this is the truth of the situation, you know? So that hopefully her thoughts and what she was thinking and saying out loud she wasn't getting so overwhelmed by those thoughts, because I could just like see her emotional reaction and everything, you know? So yeah, I think I definitely tried to be like, Lonnie, like, it's okay, like, people aren't actually looking, you know. When you go in there, I'm sure like the food will just be done and you can just grab it and we can get in the car. And I was just pretty much like trying to reassure her and just encourage her to be like, you know, like, it's okay, take your time, but at the same time, like, don't worry about everybody else, you know? Everybody else will be everybody else, and everybody else is doing their own thing, you know?
Yeah, and for me, it was like, I wasn't really like hearing her, because I don't know, like with my anxiety like getting worse, and then like, and it's like, first of all, in my head I was thinking like, first of all, you weren't the one getting out the car, so of course like you could say it's fine because you're not the one that has to put yourself out there. And then two, it's like, you don't know how I feel because you don't have social anxiety. So it's like, to me in my head, I was like, okay, well, be quiet because you don't know nothing about nothing what I'm going through.
Yeah.
You know? So don't try to act like you know how I feel. You know? And so I kind of snapped on her, and I was like, I was basically like, shut up, you're not the one that's getting out the car.
Yeah.
And after that, she was just kind of quiet. And, you know, I kept doing my thing, trying to like hide from everybody that walked by the car. And
she did end up going to get the hoodie and coming back and putting it on, but she was really just preparing herself to go outside.
Yeah, I was really,
mentally.
Yeah, I was preparing my mind, if anything, to go outside. And I feel like this is gonna sound so dramatic to so many people. Let me know if y'all have social anxiety. Let me know if I'm not the only one. But it was so hard for me for some reason, like, to just get the courage to get out the car, which is so bizarre to me because I haven't had like a anxiety attack like that was caused by my social anxiety in a while. Because I don't know, I felt like that's something I already dealt with, like with God and therapy and stuff like that. But for some reason, the situation just triggered it back up again, and I'm like, what is going on? And so, yeah, so like Naiya said, I ended up putting on the hoodie and going inside to get the food. I go inside, and it's like, in my mind, it's like, even if nobody's looking at me, my mind is still going like 100 miles per hour, because I'm like, oh, I look stupid, I look crazy, like, my hair's not done, like, my clothes look weird, like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, thinking of everything I can to, like, pick myself apart to why I might look like a sore thumb in this restaurant. And really, it's like, I doubt anybody was looking at me, and I can be reasonable now, but at the time, I'm like, you know, mid-panic attack.
Right.
And so, I go in there, and the food's not ready. Meanwhile, we had ordered this food like pre-order, so we had already been waiting quite a while before
we had pre-ordered it. And then when we got to the restaurant, that was when Lonnie and I were going back and forth. So it was like even more time than the time that we had gotten there had passed, because we were sitting in the car for a lot of that time going back and forth as to who was going to go into this restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, so it definitely should have been done.
And it wasn't like a lot of people inside the store either, so it's like, I was really surprised that it wasn't done, because they're usually pretty quick about it, especially when there's not a lot of people there. And
just God setting us up.
For real. And so I'm sitting, and as I'm sitting in this restaurant, it's like, and this is just, again, social anxiety. I'm not rational at this time because I'm like mid-anxiety attack, but like, I just have this like overwhelming feeling of wanting to like cry, because like my anxiety was getting so bad just being in front of people. to where like I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't make eye contact with people. Like I couldn't, like, literally I had my head to on my phone or on the floor. Like I couldn't do it. That's how like bad it was getting. And so, you know, while I'm in this like hyper emotional state and still trying to look normal on the outside to others, even though I'm terrified on the inside. And it's like I was getting more mad at like Naiya, because I was like, well, she's the one who put me in this situation. You know, if she would have just, you know, told me before we went out that like she wanted to go here, or if she knew where she wanted to go before we left, like, you know, I wouldn't have to be in this situation where I'm forced to be put in a situation that's very uncomfortable for me, and that's very triggering for me. And so the food took a long dang on time.
A long time. Now, mind y'all, like, Lonnie's in the restaurant, I'm in the car, and I'm really sitting and I'm thinking about, like, everything that transpired in the car before she went out inside, you know? And for me, I felt like I understood where she was coming from. I understood that she was, like, upset, that she had anxiety and everything else. But I am the type of person where, like, I don't really know where this comes from even yet. It's kind of something that I think me and God are still dealing with. But for some reason, when I'm in a space where people snap or people, like, come at me in a certain way and I'm not giving them that energy or that, like I'm not, like, biting back, I'm not being rude or anything. Like, when somebody, like, snaps at me or yells at me or like, whatever it is, you know?
Right.
When people do that, I tend to go into shutdown mode, you know? And a long time, like, especially in my past, that would happen to me. I would just find myself in situations where I felt disrespected, or I felt like somebody didn't care about me, that somebody was supposed to, when somebody was supposed to. And so I would really I would kind of shut down, and then this switch would literally just go on, and it would just be like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about you. I don't care about anything. I don't care about love. I will literally just be like robot activated, like, you know? And so I knew that she was hurt, and I knew that I had placed her in that position, and I was sorry for that, and I was apologetic. But I also felt like, wow, like, this is really the first time I think God has really, like, brought me back out of this shell that I was in emotionally. And I was like, one of the first moments I have where I'm trying to be who I was before, compassionate and kind and vulnerable, and meeting somebody where they're at and being gracious towards Lonnie for what she was going through. I felt like I was still met with pain, you know, and hurt, and like I still like she still didn't notice like what I was really trying to do and like my true intentions. And so I was like, dang, like I was going through my head like, you know, is it my fault? Like, did I do something? Like, was my tone not correct? You know, was it this, was it that? But then I was like, I was compassionate, I was kind, and maybe she just doesn't like me, or blah, blah, blah. Like, I was really like internalizing a lot of things. And then there was a point at which I got close to being like, okay, well, I don't care. But then I had to fight myself, and I was like, no, but I do care. And I don't want to go back to that place where, you know, I am just emotionally shut down and vulnerably like, and not vulnerable with my sister, especially because we have ministry together. I love her. That's just not the type of person I am anymore, you know?
Right.
I've let that old self go. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna let the enemy do this to me, but it still just really stung, you know?
Right.
And so she's in there, and she was in there for a while, and I had a thought, and I was like, dang, like, I know that, like, she's probably boiling, because I don't know why it's taking so long, but I was like, she did not want to go in there. I'm over here like, it'd probably just take a second, and it took like 10 minutes. It's just like, man.
Yeah, so y'all are probably like, yeah, oh, all over this, all over suburban.
Every time we talk about like our arguments or our fights or anything, I always feel like probably people are looking at us like, y'all are extra.
For real. But I was like, so, long story short, they finally came out with the food. I was like, okay, great. We skedaddled. And I got back in the car, and I'm not gonna lie, walking back to the car in my head, I was like, I was thinking, like, you know what? I'm gonna tell her how I feel. I'm gonna tell her about herself, blah, blah, blah. But then there was like, I feel like there is the Holy Spirit inside of me that was like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should just hush up. And because we did learn about the power of the tongue the other week, and you know, we can't just not walk out what we preach to y'all. So I was like, all right. So I got in the car, and I was just silent the whole time. Yeah. And I didn't say anything.
Which is really weird for us. Super weird.
Yeah, because we be talking, child.
It's the most awkward thing when, like, Lonnie and I are upset, or, like, we're in a confined space and, like, we're not talking. Like, it's, like, the weirdest.
Yeah, so the whole car ride back home, I'm just silent because I'm like, if I open my mouth, the only thing that's going to come out is anger, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not going to be from a place of understanding or reasoning, because I'm still emotional.
Yeah.
So I'm like...
I'm completely, like, I'm just, like, I'm not shut down, but, like, I was getting to that place where I was like, if I hear anything else, I know that, like, I'm just emotionally, like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. Like, I'm just not there.
Yeah, so we get home, and this part is kind of funny, but we go home, and I go in my room, and, like, I'm eating or whatever, but, like, I'm sad eating. Like, I'm crying over my fries, making them extra salty, because I'm like, Lord, did you see what she did to me? And so I'm sure the Lord was just listening, like, ooh, child, y'all just make my scalp itch.
Y'all are a mess.
But I was like, Lord, like, she knows, like, I have social anxiety. She knows that I don't like being put in these kind of situations, like, you know. And I, like, at this point, I had calmed down a little bit, so I wasn't as emotional as I was before. But at the same time, I was like, so at this time, I kind of knew, like, I couldn't blame her, because by the time she realized she wanted to go to somewhere else, we were already, like a little bit of ways from the house. And so it was like, she couldn't have known that she was going to change her mind. But at the same time, it's just frustrating, because it's like, you put me in a very triggering situation.
Right.
And so that could have been avoided. And so I remember God was basically telling me, like, you know, you have to forgive her. And I'm like, I know, but it's like still. And it's like I was still holding on to it. I was trying to, like, hold on to that anger. I was trying to hold on to that frustration and be like, no, I'm validated in how I feel, like she did me dirty. And so the Lord is like, no, like, you have to forgive her. You have to, like, you know, just let it go. Find it in your heart to forgive her. And I told the Lord, I was like, well, I can't forgive her right now. I need a second. And so I'm sure the Lord was like, well, I'll give you a second. So I started boo-hoo crying some more. And then I guess you could tell what you were doing in your room.
When we had gotten home, I went into my room before Lonnie even went into hers. I didn't even grab my food. I just went straight upstairs, and my bed wasn't made. And when I, like, get emotional or whatever, like, everything has to be perfect, or else everything will, like, trigger, I think, my emotions for some reason. Mm-hmm. So, like, I was in my room, and I didn't expect to, like, cry or anything, but I'm, like, making my bed or whatever, and I'm like, you know, and I'm, like, trying to put my sheets on, blah, blah, blah. I was waiting for my mom and my sister I was waiting for my mom and Lonnie pretty much to get their food because I didn't want to go back downstairs and like I saw her. And so I waited like a good amount of time, and then I think I heard her door slam, and even after I heard that, I waited like probably 5 or 10 more minutes. And then I went downstairs and I got my food and I came up, and but literally like I couldn't eat. Like I was eating, like I was in the middle of eating, but I couldn't find like whatever show I wanted to watch, blah blah blah. Like my emotions were just like so out of whack. And I remember thinking to myself while I was eating, like, I wonder why I emotionally shut down. Like, I wonder why whenever I'm in a space like this, like, my emotions are just so out of whack, and I just can't seem to, like, just be, like, all right. Like, I don't understand why I always react and respond so extremely like this, you know? So I was like, let me see if I can find out, like, why. And so I went online and I kind of just checked in, like, why I emotionally shut down. And, like, I searched it up, and there was this guy that showed up on YouTube, right? But he was doing it from, like, a psychological perspective or whatever, and I was like, I mean, I guess. And so he was talking, and literally, like, not even 3 minutes into the video, I'm, like, eating, and all of a sudden I look at a fry that I'm about to eat, and I just start bawling. Like, it had nothing to do with anybody saying anything. Like, it wasn't, my fry didn't, like, trigger depression, but I just started crying, like, profusely. Like, I was just, like, really bawling. And I paused the video because I wasn't even listening to it at this point. And I don't even know really what was coming out. It felt like pain, you know, but at the same time, it was like, I don't know. It's like just hard to explain. So I was just crying, and I was telling God, like, I have no idea why I'm crying this hard. Like, I have no idea why it's this extreme, why I'm responding like this. But I remember putting my fries down, and I think I had told you guys before that I have had problems with an eating disorder. And so there was a time where I was very, like, I got into a very dark place, and I was depressed and everything, and I would not eat. I would just choose to, like, just not eat. And so I had a problem with associating my emotions with the food that I was eating. And so in that moment, being very emotional and seeing my fries and knowing that I cried while I was eating my fries, I was like, every time I look at my food, I'm sad. You know? And then I was like, okay, no, like, you can't do that. Like, you haven't eaten all day. You're gonna have to eat this. Right. You know? So I was really trying to, like, fight myself. And so I just put my food away. And I was like, okay, don't associate your food with how you feel right now, you know? Because it's not Five Guys' fault. And so I kind of just sat there, and I was crying. And then once I just decided to really, like, figure it out, I was like, okay, let me just pray. Like, I'm just gonna pray about this, you know? And so I basically just told God, like, I have no idea why, you know, I'm responding the way that I'm responding. But when I told him that, in the middle of my prayer, I told him I thought that I was being compassionate. I thought that I was being kind. And I remember when I said that, I started crying even more, and it kind of felt like that's really what was in my heart. Like, I keep being vulnerable with people, and I keep getting hurt, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was kind of just telling God, like, I understand if it was my fault, you know? I understand that, you know, I put her in a position where, like, she was compromised or whatever, but, you know, I didn't mean to. That wasn't my intention. And I pretty much told God, like, I just need you to handle the situation. I need you to handle my heart. I need you to correct me and guide me, and if I did anything wrong, like, let me know, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much what I told him, or what I asked of him. And then after that, I really felt like the peace of him over me, and I felt okay, and I stopped crying so much. And then I ended up watching TV as normal. I went back to eating or whatever, but it was just, yeah, that's kind of just like how it was in my room.
Right. And
it was actually crazy because I was telling Lonnie, in the middle of me praying, I heard Lonnie in the other room, because our rooms are right next to each other, right? Lonnie's in the other room, and all I hear is, She's like laughing, like to the most extreme, and I'm over here like praying, trying to hold on to my heart, and I'm like, so I remember thinking like, dang, like God, like she's having the time of her life, and I'm over here struggling, like, jeez.
Absolutely not. Like, and it's funny because that was the one cackle that came out because I was watching this video while I was like crying and eating. And I was watching this video, and it's just a YouTuber that I like to watch, and something stupid happened in the video, and it made me laugh or whatever, and so that's the one chuckle I let out, and then I kept crying after that. And but yeah, and so after that video ended, I actually like, I went back on my YouTube recommended, and I was just looking for more videos to watch or whatever. And there was this one video that stood out to me that was on my recommended, and it was, I forgot her full name. I feel bad, but I think her first name was Tabitha or something like that. It's like an older black woman. I guess she's an influencer, and one of her videos came up on my recommended, and I pressed on it, and she was basically like, oh well, I don't know who this is for, but like, you failed to give somebody grace today. You failed to give somebody mercy and grace. And so basically the summary of the message she is saying is that sometimes silence is the best grace that you can give somebody. Sometimes when you're so fed up and you're so like emotional and you're so like, just angry or however you're feeling, sometimes silence is the best grace you can give somebody. Like, you don't always need to go say something. And so, and then she was also saying how like, basically you just need to give grace to people, because God gives grace to us. And so it really made me think about, the way I reacted, and made me think about like how I snapped at her, and I was like, that wasn't right of me. But I was like, and I felt like God was putting it on my heart to like reconcile and to apologize. But I was like, Lord, like, I'm always the one to go apologize to, or like I'm always the one that has to be the bigger person and go say sorry first all the time. Like, why don't she ever come in here and talk to me and ask me how I feel? And the Lord was, the Lord didn't directly answer me on that part, but he was like, all right, now you need to wrap it up. Let's go ahead and just go, because I think he didn't really have to say anything, because I felt like I really checked myself there, and I really had to do like a pride check, because I was like, that's just a really prideful thing to think, that you don't have the responsibility of like reaching out to somebody just because that's what you did last time you guys had an argument.
Yeah.
Childish. And so I was like,
all y'all that are doing that in your relationship, stop. You're just childish.
Right. And I really have to check myself and be like, I can't be too prideful to where I don't reconcile this, and then, we do ministry together, and it's just, you lose so much more than you gain.
Facts.
And so, I'm not gonna let pride get between me and my sister. And the enemy always likes to hype things up, and I'm like, I'm not gonna let
this get bigger it'll be the smallest thing ever. We're like, did she just look at you on your nose? I'm sure she thinks your nose is ugly. Like, enemy, get thee behind me. Like, what?
For real. And so I was like, all right. So I took some time, and I was really also giving her time, because I didn't know how she was feeling. I didn't know if she was mad or angry or sad or whatever. But so after a while, I came back in the room. I went in her room, and I just was like, hey, I'm coming in. And she was like, why? And I was like, what do you mean, why? And I just sat down on her bed.
She literally just impeded on my space. Shook my head.
We just started like doing our own thing, but we were like in the same room.
Baby steps.
Right.
And
then finally I was like, are you mad at me? And she was like, no. Do you feel like I'm mad at you? And I was like, yeah. Because like her, I don't know, her energy towards me was kind of like distant. So I was like, oh, I don't know if she wants to see me right now. And so we basically talked it out. And we resolved everything. We told each other the same thing we've been telling you guys.
Yeah.
You know, and it really all got worked out. And really, after the whole thing, we were like, well, I guess we know the message for this week.
Right. Grace.
And that's okay.
That's how God works. He always does this. We always go through something, and it's like, so now you know how that is. You should go teach on it. We're like, Lord.
Right.
Shake my head.
So I had to learn to give grace to Naiya. I had to learn to realize that the situation was kind of out of both of our control. Because we both had
pure intentions going in. Yeah.
And we both did things that, like, you know, hurt each other unintentionally. And it was really just like a inconvenient situation. That was all. Yeah. And it turned into something bigger.
It just probably shouldn't have, but it just did.
Yeah. And so it would have been so petty for us to hold on to that and let it ruin the message for this week and let it resonate over something so small. And so we ended up making up. I ended up like giving her grace and just being like, you know what, I forgive you. I'm just choose to move on from now. And it showed me a lot about myself because it, like I told you earlier, like this is something that I felt like I had worked on already, like with a therapist and with God. But I feel like that experience really made me realize that, like, you know, this is something that I constantly have to work at controlling, and I constantly have to work on, you know, not only being patient, being slow to anger, but also when I get angry, not stooping to other people's levels. And not saying that Naiya was like already going low because she was the one encouraging me, but like not going for like low blows or not turning into a person that I'm not, you know, when I'm angry. Learning how to like control myself still, having self-control. And I feel like this was God really, first of all, testing me, because we just did a message on the power of the tongue. So he was like, are you really believing what you say? Are you really holding on to it? And I needed the Holy Spirit to remind me a little bit. But, you know, I'm proud of myself for keeping my mouth closed, because the old me would have been like, no, you gonna know how I feel, child. You gonna feel it.
I definitely think that I learned the same thing, you know? It was I had went through a moment that I also thought, like, would be resolved by the time I had gotten where I am, you know? Like, that emotional, like, shutdown thing, since I had just came out of it. But sure enough, like, you know, a situation happened where I went back to that place, and how easy it is to allow the enemy into certain places, you know, where you, or like when you're really emotional, to how easy it is for you to be enticed into being somebody that you used to be, or going to a certain place that you used to go to when you felt a certain type of way, you know? And pretty much learning, first of all, to fight that and have spiritual warfare over your situation, even if you're hurting, you know, because there's a lot of times where I was battling between not only me and Lonnie's argument, but I was battling with myself and arguing with myself over not going to a certain place, you know?
Right.
And so, I think that definitely understanding where Lonnie was coming from was me having grace over her, listening to her when, you know, we went ahead and we resolved everything.
Right.
Being honest with her as to how she made me feel, and I think expressing myself and how I felt in the moment, was also me being gracious towards myself, because there would be times where I would go through something similar to this, and I would think I'm not going to grace them with the ability to know that I'm hurt. You know, I'm gonna be stone cold. They won't know that, like, you know, they ever hurt me. You know, I'm not gonna allow them to know that. You know, they're just gonna think that they're literally the gnat under my feet. You know,
Right.
Pretty much, like, you know, that's how I used to be. And I used to do that through just like shutting down, like being distant, being cold-hearted, blah blah blah. But you know, I think I not only showed grace to myself by expressing myself, which is something that I don't really do, but I also had grace on Lonnie by opening up and like showing her, like, you know, yes, I know that, like, I hurt you and you hurt me, but I'm still open and I'm still here. You know, I'm still vulnerable to you, and I want you to know that I understand you and I love you, and I would not want to put you in that position again, you know? Mm-hmm. So just having that open, honest, vulnerable communication with one another, and showing grace to one another, and showing grace on ourselves, you know? By not allowing the enemy to beat me up within myself, and then opening back up and just knowing it's not me being vulnerable, and it's not me showing grace that caused me pain. The situation just was what it was, but I still have the choice of being the same godly, loving, you know, gracious, kind person that I am, and I know that God will reward that between him and I, regardless of whether I get a reward or I get forgiveness from Lonnie, you know?
Right.
So it was really eye-opening. Shake my head.
Yeah. And so yeah, that was the first thing that happened this week.
And I don't know if you guys know the definition of grace.
Right.
Where was the...
What?
You said there was a...
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Is it here?
I can't see it. I don't have my glasses.
Oh, girl. We're sorry, guys. We're trying to find the definition.
Go down for the people. There it is.
Okay. So, the biblical definition of grace is grace. Grace is a favor from God that is not earned. We receive this favor through salvation from God and other blessings. And God's grace is not dependent on our acts, but solely on the fact that he desires to gift it to us. So God not only gives us grace by blessing us and allowing us to have favor in certain places in our lives, having protection and love and stuff like that over our lives, though we do not earn it and we don't really deserve it for the acts that we commit during this lifetime, or the thoughts that we have during this lifetime most of the time. But God's grace basically covers us, and it's pretty much like it's a form of love, you know. Mm-hmm. Grace is a form of showing favor and giving the gift of love or kindness or, you know, forgiveness or anything like that, despite the other person having done something that is not deserving of that, is basically what grace is. So God not only gives grace to us, but he tells us to give grace to others. And whether that's a friend or an enemy, basically God says when something is done unto you that hurts you, or the other person has done you wrong, or whatever it is, you know, do not do unto them the same thing, basically. God says show them grace, show them love, show them forgiveness. And though that is not something that they earn for doing what they did to you and the act of what they did to you, it's still a gift that you give to them to show them that, you know, you love them, and that it's a reflection really of God. It's a reflection really of God's love. and you doing that to other people that normally are not deserving of it, or people that aren't used to that, it will really change them, and it'll really make them think about themselves, and it'll really help you out and allow you to be a stronger person, because you're releasing that anger, you're releasing that hurt from whatever you experienced, you're releasing the stress or the anxiety or whatever unto God. You're giving that to him, and in place of that, he's filling you up with his grace to give to others, which allows you to not be so, it allows you really not to be, bitter and, resenting to other people and trying to get other people back and all that other stuff. Even though somebody might be doing that to you, it allows you to be the stronger person, and you can change people by responding to them that way, because people are confused most of the time when they come across a person that can love them even when that other person has done them wrong. They're like, what is wrong with you? I literally just maybe threw your lunch in the trash or something. Why are you buying me lunch now?
Right. And real quick, I just want to clear up the line between mercy and grace. Mercy, I would say, mercy is when somebody doesn't give you back what you deserve. And I would say grace is when somebody doesn't give you the treatment or the thing that you deserve, and on top of that, they give you something better than what was originally basically owed.
Yeah. So here it says mercy. So a lot of people will think mercy first is compassion or forgiveness shown towards somebody who has the power to punish or do harm to somebody else. So let's say you're in the courtroom and a judge has the power to give you a sentence of 100+ years for whatever you did, but instead they show mercy unto you and they decide to only give you 5 years or 10 years. Somebody will see that as mercy. But here it also says that the Bible defines mercy beyond forgiveness and withholding punishment. God shows his mercy for those who are suffering through healing, comfort, and the alleviation of suffering, and caring about those in distress. So, and this is done through his acts of compassion and mercy for us. So also showing mercy through the alleviation of our distress or pain or discomfort, I think. Though God could allow you to feel the full brunt of whatever you did or whatever situation you're in, God tends not to do that. He not only shows grace by maybe giving you something that you didn't deserve, maybe allowing you to be able to go to therapy or something, or bringing a friend into your life that really understands you or whatever that is. Not only gifting you with something, but also alleviating the suffering that you're also going through is mercy, allowing you to not be able to feel the first. And I think that that's really shown in protection most of the time too. Whenever we go out into this world, a lot of the times we are our angels, and this spiritual life, people are constantly battling. We constantly go through life and certain things were supposed to happen that didn't happen. And that's because God is showing mercy on you, and he's alleviating a lot of the bad things that are actually happening to you, or that could have actually happened to you, because your angels are working on your behalf, and God has a hedge of protection over you, and you prayed over yourself this morning and everything like that, And normally we don't, because the bad things that were supposed to happen that didn't happen, we didn't see them. We don't tend to give credit to God for allowing us to get to our destinations, or for protecting us when we're outside, or for allowing the situation not to be as bad as it was. We tend to be upset when one bad thing does happen in our lives, And we're like, God, how could you? You know?
Right.
But God is like, I literally saved you from 100 other things that were supposed to happen today by showing you mercy. But even though you don't understand that, I'm going to show grace unto you, you know? And that's really what God does in our lives. He shows grace to us for our misunderstandings or for our acts of not deserving everything that he gives us. And that's what he really calls for us to show other people. Even if you are in a place where you can punish, don't. Shake my head, show mercy, you know. Even if you do punish, allow it to be out of love, and don't make it as severe as it's supposed to be, you know. But on top of that, I think God really wanted us to share the message of showing grace unto other people, showing kindness, compassion, and love unto other people, even if they don't deserve it. You know, because in reality, we all need grace. We have done things to others that we did not deserve forgiveness for. We did not deserve love from. We've done, even if it's not your friends or people that you're around. Me and Lonnie really were talking about our parents, you know? Mm-hmm. As children, our parents show us grace constantly, you know? And me and Lonnie were thinking about, like, all throughout our lives, it was nothing but the grace of God, you know, that we're alive and that our parents still trust us and they still love us and they still give us a roof over our heads, because there's a lot of other parents that don't show grace onto their kids, and their kids are struggling and their kids are in shelters and blah, 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 because their parents didn't have that grace or love, and so they didn't show that onto their children, you know? Mm-hmm. And just everybody deserves grace. So do unto others, the Bible says, that you would want done unto yourself, and that includes allowing others to have the gift of grace from you, allowing others to have that forgiveness and that compassion, going out of your way to doing things for others even when others hurt you, because that's what you would want done, you know? And most of the time people don't have evil intention, but even if they do, the Bible also says that vengeance is the Lord's and he will deal with it. But as long as you're good, you know, and you know that you've done something right by the Lord, he will honor that and he will reward you, you know? Yeah. So, most definitely. Yeah. I know we also were given Esther also for this live. And if you guys don't know the story of Esther, basically it was this girl who was a Jew, living in Persia in the Bible. She has a book in the Bible. It's called Esther. And her cousin Mordecai was the one that really took care of her pretty much like her whole life, because her parents had, you know, like passed away or whatever. And so one day the king of Persia, I guess he was having this big banquet or whatever, pretty much. He was trying to show... to the comments. Yeah, sure. He was trying to show his grace, or not his grace, he was trying to show his greatness, like, he was basically trying to show off all of his riches and his splendor or whatever in this kingdom, right? So he was hosting this banquet, and it lasted forever. And on one of the last days, he pretty much decides that he wants to bring in his queen at the time, right? And the queen's name was Vashti. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, bring in Queen Vashti. I want to show everybody how beautiful she is, how wonderful she is, blah, blah, blah. But the queen was like, girl, boy, bye. Pretty much. Like, she was like, I don't want to show up. Like, you're a drunken mess. I don't want to go out there. My bonnet is on. I'm getting ready for bed. Find somebody else, pretty much. And so the king was like really upset, because he was like, girl, I told you to get your booty over here. Right. And his little hype man on the side was like, yo, if everybody finds out that your wife disrespected you, then everybody else's wife will think that it's okay to disrespect their husbands, and they're gonna start a riot. And right. So like, basically when Queen Vashti was like, no, everybody was like, ooh. Right. Like, it's pretty much what happened. Childish. So he went ahead, and mind you, the king's hype man, so called, I guess that Lonnie calls him, his name is Haman. So And Haman is going to be very important in this story. So he basically is like, ooh, she thinks she can disrespect you, and every man should be the king of his own castle. Blah, blah, blah. And that's pretty much a decree that they made. And so they kick King Vashti or Queen Vashti out, and they're like, you know what? We're going to do one better. We're going to find you a new queen. And that's pretty much what Haman is saying. Like, we're going to find you a new queen because, you know, you the king of your castle. And every woman would want to be with you. You know, we gonna get one that's even more beautiful than the last one. And we're gonna ban Queen Vashti so that she knows that she is
no chance of
the stomach between your toes. Love King Persia. Like, literally is pretty much what they did.
And so Esther is in this story, and she is the she wasn't like a cousin or something?
She was, yeah. So Esther was the cousin of Mordecai, right? And Mordecai was the king's guard. So he was the one that, like, basically stands outside of the gate and gatekeeps for the king. And Esther was his daughter, but also essentially the cousin, right?
Yeah. So basically they go out, they pull all the women from the town, and they're basically like, hear ye, the king is single and ready to mingle.
Right.
And so, you know, all the girls coming out, and they like, ooh, child, let me get some of this,
they're like, let me lay these edges, let me get this alright, let me grab my perfume.
They said, I'm trying to be a stay-at-home wife.
Right, exactly.
And so,
but Esther, she's not with it. Esther's kind of like, I don't want to go.
Yeah, Esther's like, that's not.
I'm like, she pretty much is like, have fun, king. I hope, like, that's wonderful for you. And Haman is pretty much, or like, everybody who's pretty much swooping these girls up is like, no, like, you don't have a choice. Like, get on the bus.
Right, so Esther takes a cute little magic school bus trip to
the king's palace.
Yeah. And they do this whole, y'all, when I was reading this, first of all, this king had parties lasted almost a whole year.
No, literally.
And then they had to go through this whole process where they had to go through all these beauty regimens or whatever. And it was like, I think it said it was like 12 months worth of like just beauty prep to go see the king. I'm like, oh no.
Right.
I'm gonna do it.
Child.
But from the beginning, it said that they favored Esther basically because Esther apparently was the it girl. Apparently Esther was serving the girls' looks that day, and for the past 12 months apparently, because the king
loved her
head over
heels, like
couldn't get enough.
Heart pumping out of his chest every time she showed up.
Punching the air, sliding down the wall, like
shake my head.
Started when we were younger,
you were mine, girl.
Literally, the king was like, ugh, I can't get enough. I'm obsessed.
Literally.
And so, they finally make it a thing where it's like Esther's queen, and so they have this like party or whatever, and but the whole time, Haman, the king's right hand man, his hype man, doesn't know that Esther is
associated with Mordecai.
Yeah, associated with Mordecai because
Mordecai told Esther, don't tell anybody that you're associated with me, because Mordecai knew that Haman hated him, hated his whole family, hated his whole line, and it's pretty much because Mordecai was not with Haman's like prideful spirit. Like, he was like, you can really tone it down, and I refuse basically to give you the honor and praise you want from me. The only honor and praise I give is pretty much to my Lord and to my king. You know, you are nobody to me, so I will not be doing any of that. And Haman just did not like that. Haman was like, okay, bet. I'm gonna make your life a living hell then.
Even though, like, in Esther, it doesn't really directly mention God, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, Mordecai doesn't really directly mention God in Esther, but it's like, it's kind of insinuated that God is moving in this whole situation. Right. Because, like, some of the things that happens in the story, like, can only be God, you know?
Yeah, literally.
And so, Yeah, so the whole time his right hand man doesn't know that Esther and Mordecai are like relative besties. And so, and Mordecai, like Naiya said, tells her, don't say nothing. Keep it on the low.
Right.
And so, basically, child, this is so funny because, like Naiya said, Haman gets mad that Mordecai won't basically bow down to him and give him respect as the king's right hand man. And so Haman was like, I'll show you. And so he had like he was basically getting the king to like make a let's say law for now. Make a law or whatever, kind of how it was.
Oh, actually before this, before what Lonnie's about to tell us, in the story, the king and the queen are now like married or whatever, right? But Mordecai ends up hearing, like overhearing some people or whatever in the kingdom basically say that they want to kill the king. They're like, yeah, he needs to go. And so Mordecai's like, dang, like these people about to kill the king, right? And so he was like, I can't do much about it, but my girl Esther is queen now, so let me go and tell her, right? So he goes up to Esther one day and he's like, hey, Es, like, these people are about to kill your husband. Your boo about to be slain. And she was just like, oh, like, who is it, you know? So he gives her all the details or whatever, and then she shows up with Mordecai, then pretty much I think like the next day or something like that, and she says like, hey, like, king, like, watch out for these people, they want to kill you, basically. And she pretty much saves the king's life or whatever, right? And the king is like, oh my god, my little honey bear, my little sweetie poo, you saved my life. And she's like, yeah, no, I didn't do anything, it was Mordecai, your guard, you can give him all of the props because he's the one that told me about everything. So he's like, oh my gosh, Mordecai, like, I need to do something for you. Well, but he doesn't end up doing anything that day. He pretty much ends up forgetting. And Haman, I think, really just didn't want him to be praised, you know? So
yeah, but before he even like knew that Mordecai was gonna be praised, they had this whole situation where like Mordecai would have bowed down, Haman was butthurt, and then Haman went back to the king and basically had the king make like a law or whatever, or pass like an agreement that basically said that every Jew in the kingdom would be like eliminated, basically.
Yeah, it's basically genocide,
right?
Is what was about to go down.
Esther and Mordecai and basically their whole family was Jewish,
right?
And so when this got out, Mordecai was like, "What'd you say, babe? Come again?" And so he goes over to Esther and he's like, hey, yo, your king is wilding.
Right.
And so
it's sealed with his royal seal.
Right.
He's about to kill all of us.
He's basically like, get your husband acting up.
Right.
And she's like, what are you talking about? And so he was like, don't you know he's about to kill us all?
Right.
And Esther's like, oh, that's crazy. What you gonna do?
Right.
He was like, girl,
I'm not about to do anything. You're the queen. You need to get up off your caboose, go up to the king, and tell him that he needs to slow his roll. Right? But Esther is like, boo. Nobody can go see the king unless they are summoned by him, pretty much. Anybody who shows up to the king without unannounced, pretty much, literally it's punishable by death. And Esther was like, I haven't been summoned by the king in a minute, is pretty much what she tells Mordecai. Right. So she's like, if I go to the king trying to tell him about this, I'm literally I'm gonna die. Like, just by walking in.
But Mordecai was like, girl, like, you're Jewish, so you gonna die if you let the bill pass anyway.
Right. Don't think that just because you're the queen that you ain't gonna get some of this ruin. Like, you know, this is for all of us.
And so she was like, you're right.
She was like, you know what? If I perish, I perish.
Boss things.
Boss
and so
queen things.
Mordecai was like, okay, cool. So convince your husband. I don't know what you need to do, child, but convince him that he needs to let us live. And so she was like, okay, bet, I got you. So she goes up to the king or whatever, and she's like, hey, baby, you looking real nice today.
Right? He's like, did I invite you? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, great. You are the most beautiful thing ever. I love you. Come up on here.
Just eating it up.
Just eating Esther up. He's like,
said,
what you want? Anything you want, babe. Like, I will give to you.
Yeah, he was literally like, I'll give you up to half my kingdom. Whatever you want, babe.
You can show up for me at any time, okay? Normally it's punishable by death, but for you, half my kingdom.
And so Esther was basically like, well, stink.
You
know, I am hosting a little like party or whatever, and
I would like my man to be there.
Right.
My man of honor.
I was thinking you and your best friend can pull up, and so
Right.
he was like, "Babe, we pull up."
Right.
And so they go back, and this whole like thing happens. The king and his hype man shows up. The hype man's all lit because he's like, ooh, I'm having dinner with the king and the queen. He thinks he's basically like that man.
Yeah, he thinks he's the it boy, pretty much.
And so, he don't even know that wifey's plotting on him.
Right.
And so, yeah, so they have this whole thing, and so the king asks, like,
Why
again, like, girl,
yeah.
stop playing with me, what you want? Like, I'll give you anything, babe. And she was like, well, if it's pleasing unto you, like if you want to give me something, I was wondering if you could come back tomorrow night and I'll tell you what I really want, steak. And so he was like, okay.
He was like, bet. Of course I want to come back. And so Haman, he leaves and he is ecstatic. He's like, 2 days in a row, I'm getting in with the king and the queen. They must really like me, boo.
Right.
He actually ends up seeing Mordecai and he's like, hey, Mordecai, guess what? He's like, I'm having brunch and lunch and dinner with the king and the queen all these past 2 days, pretty much. And he's like, I am thriving out here. Right. How are you? Huh? About to die in 2 days? Great. And he's just like, I could tell the king not to do anything if you just, get on one knee, face down, And so Mordecai is like, I'm not going to do that. You're not worth it. You're not worth my time. You're the scum in between my toes. And the only person that I will bow down to is my king and my God. And so Mordecai's like, you know what? I'm gonna really show you today. I'm going to pass the bill so that it can sweep in tonight. Instead of waiting a couple days, you don't have a couple days. I'm gonna do it tonight.
Yeah,
okay.
So basically, he was trying to convince the king that Mordecai was like plotting against him, or Mordecai was doing something shady or whatever, right, to like basically convince the king to like kill Mordecai or whatever early.
And he even went as far as to go home to tell his wife, and they pretty much like created this it was like a spear, or really long, like, I don't really know what they call it, but it was basically something to impale Mordecai on. So like a really big, like tall spear, I guess you can say, and it like has like a spike at the top, right, to impale people's bodies on.
Right. And so
yeah, so he creates that, and I think it says he makes it like 50 feet long or something like that, like some crazy. But yeah, after that happens, pretty much Haman is like, okay, now all I have to do after making this is go to the king and let him know. Now mind you, the night that the first banquet went on, the king couldn't sleep that well, and the king was like, I need my royal scribe pretty much to read me everything that happened, read me all of the accounts, all of the records of like what's been going on so that I can sleep. And so his recorder or whatever is going through and he's reading on the list of things that had happened in the past day or whatever, what he recorded. And one of the records was of the moment at which Mordecai saved the king's life.
It was a post.
It was a post, they called it?
75 feet.
Ooh, it was even more than I said. 75 feet post, y'all. To impale Mordecai's body on.
So he went in.
He went in. And so, yeah. So the king is sitting there and he's like, read me the records. And so the recorder is like, okay. And he ends up going and reading this record of Mordecai saving the king's life. Yeah. Right? And so the king is like, hold up. Did you say Mordecai? And the recorder's like, yeah, that's what I said. And the king is like, did I ever, like, praise or honor that guy for saving my life? And the recorder's like, no. And he's like, dang, where are my manners at?
Right. He said, hold up.
I need to do something great for this kid. But you know what? I can't really think of anything that great, you know? I was like, he was pretty much like, I need something more creative. And I'm just like, nah, I'm not like that.
He's like, you know what? I got just the man for the job.
Just the man for the job.
Haman just so happens to have been at the right place at the right time to give the king an opinion. So the king was like, hey,
well, Haman actually, he went there of his own volition. Haman was actually going there to speed the decree up and have basically the guards or whatever go and take all of the Jews to their death sentence early, is what he had initially went to the king to do.
Yeah, so Haman was like, king, let me tell you something. Let me tell you. And so the king was like, hold up, Haman. I got something to ask of you. First, he was like, so the king was like, so there's this person, right? And they just been so good to me. They listen to me. They my right hand man. They just always by my side. They got my back. We like this. And so he was like, what do you recommend I do for somebody that's so special, so near and dear to my heart, my ride or die? So Haman's all puffed up his chest. He said, well,
you ain't gotta say nothing but a word,
like, you know what? I'm more of like a humble person, but if you wanted to really do something special for somebody, I guess you could just, you know, ride on a horse, clothe them with one of your robes that you've worn, and, you know, have them ride around on a horse with somebody, like, basically saying, like,
decreeing that they are the best person alive, that they are the most honorable, the most praiseworthy person that the king has ever laid their eyes on. Right. You know, have everybody be there. Let everybody know how wonderful this guy of yours is.
Yeah, so Haman was like going in on this. Because in his mind he was thinking, oh, the king,
it must be me.
There is me.
No way that it's not me.
Right. And so he was like, this man gotta be talking about me because I've been there for him since day one. So
right or die.
Like, I'm gonna do it big for me. And then so after he was done doing his little like Fantasyland thing, you know, the king was like, yeah. He was like, you want to something.
This is why you're the creative one. Good job, Haman.
Right.
I need you to do that for my man Mordecai.
Right. He said, you know Mordecai? Yeah. I thought I saw you hanging
That's the man. You're doing it. And you know what? I want you to be the guy to tell everybody how great he is.
Right.
And so Haman is like, punch in the air, so upset, literally.
Let me read you what it says, because this part really made me laugh.
Crying on the inside, bro.
It's the next one, I think. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, Haman is upset, guys. He's literally fed up with life. He's like, why?
Yeah, so it says, this is Esther 6, verse 4. It says, Haman had just entered the outer area of the king's palace. He had come to ask the king to hang Mordecai on the hanging post. Haman had commanded on the hanging post Mordecai. What the heck? Sorry, y'all, I can't read today. He had come to ask the king to hang Mordecai on the hanging post Haman had commanded to be built. The king said, "Who just came into the courtyard?" The king's servant said, "Haman is standing in the courtyard." So the king said, "Bring him on in." When Haman came in, the king asked him a question. He said, "Haman, what should be done for my homeboy? The king wants the honor." Basically, Haman thought to himself, who is there that the king would want to honor more than me? Your boy's been there since day one. I'm about to die. I'm sure that the king is talking about honoring your boy. So Haman answered the king, "Do this for the man the king loves to honor. Have the servants bring a special robe the king himself has worn and a horse the king himself has ridden. Have the servants put the king's special mark on the horse's head. Then put one of the king's most important leaders in charge of the robe and the horse, and let the leader put the robe on the man the king wants to honor. Then let him lead on the horse through the streets. As he leads him, let him announce, 'This is done for the man the king wants to honor,'" basically. "And go quickly," the king commanded Haman. "Get the robe and the horse. Do just as you have suggested for Mordecai, the Jew. He is sitting near the king's gate. Do everything you suggested." So Haman got the robe and the horse. Then he put the robe on Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city streets. Haman announced ahead of Mordecai, "This is done for the homeboy of the king." And so after that, Mordecai went back to the king's gate, but Haman hurried home with his head covered. He said, because he was so embarrassed and ashamed. Then Haman told his wife, Zeresh, and all his friends everything that had happened to him. His wife and the men who gave him advice. This is the same people who gave them that advice, like, "Oh yeah, you should plot on Mordecai. Oh, you should kill the Jews."
Yeah, his wife and like his friends or whatever, they're also the same people that was like, "Yeah, let's make a 7 feet tall post and just like kill Mordecai on it."
Yeah, these are the same people that were having him up before, and
Evil.
now these are the same people saying this. Hold on. If Mordecai is a Jew, you cannot win. You have already started to fall. Surely you will be ruined. While they were still talking to Haman, the king, I don't know how to say the word, came to Haman's house. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So they said
so that happens or whatever.
You have already started to fall. Surely you will be ruined. So basically,
this is a foretelling. This is a foreshadowing of Mordecai being like, you know what? Despite her being a Jew, I'm still gonna try. But it is definitely a foreshadowing of Mordecai having a warning of, like, even though God is not mentioned, pretty much from God through his friends who have been plotting with him, saying, "Listen, dude, you might want to stop while you ahead. Like, you're already getting torn up."
Not only that, but it was like, even his wife was like, "Look, babe,
I know, like, this was fun and all to play this little game with you, but
I don't think this is it.
I don't think this is safe. We're not safe here." You know, Mordecai's pretty much like, you know what? Don't mind me. I have another banquet that I'm going to with the king and the queen. Everything will be fine. This decree is still going to go forward, whatever, right? And so Esther invites the king and Haman a second time to the second banquet. And this time, when they're eating, cutting up, laughing, blah, 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 Haman thinks they're about to have a great old time. The king is like, "Esther, baby, anything you want, tell me. I've been on the edge of my seat waiting for you to tell me what it is that you want from me. Anything. I will give you anything." You know? So Esther's like, "Well, you know,
you can have whatever you like."
Right. Esther's like, "Well, babe, I just need you to know that your homeboy is plotting against me and my family."
The king said,
The king said, "Gasp!" Shake my head, and Esther say, yeah. Your little friend over there, he literally has made a decree against me, my cousin Mordecai, the person who saved your life, the person you just had ridden on your horse.
Right.
Yeah, he has been planning to send me, my family, and all of the Jews to death.
And so
get it fixed, or else I'll fix it myself.
So while all this is happening, Mordecai is shaking in his boots.
No, Haman. Haman is shaking
Haman is shaking in his boots. Like, he's like, ooh, child.
Haman is like, oh, what did I do?
He said time to skedaddle. And so basically,
but the king, he goes out to the courtyard. The king is upset. The king is furious. And the king is like, what? How dare you, Haman?
Mad.
And so he feels the ultimate betrayal. Haman is Judas to this king now. So the king gets up, he walks out of the courtyard, and Haman is pretty much begging Queen Esther, like, please don't kill me. Right. Don't let the king beat me up. He's like, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. And Esther is like, you filthy mutt, get off of me. But when the king comes back, he sees Haman all over Esther, and he's like, you dare try to kill my wife and disrespect her right in front of me? Trying to get with her? Trying to smooth
talking about mother. It's
mother time now. So the king was like, you know what? Or I think it was some guards. He was like, you know what I should do to you? These guards have been telling me that you've been building 75 feet posts up in this crib. So what I'm going to do is you are going to go on that very post that you created, and you are literally going to be impaled. Death is for you, and nothing else will suffice, pretty much.
So the same post that he made for Mordecai is the same post that he got killed on by the king.
Impaled. And he asked Esther a few other things, and Esther pretty much just told them, you know, first of all, even though you can't come against the decree that you already made, tell another decree that the Jews are able to defend themselves in any way possible. They're able to kill anybody that has been a part of planning these schemes against them, or anybody that tries to come attack them. They have full reign over going and just slaying people dead, right? In order to protect themselves. And she had told him, allow Haman's family also pretty much to die, to perish. Let the Jews do whatever they want to do to them as well.
So basically, to reverse it, the king made another decree basically saying that Jews are allowed to defend themselves on the day where they're supposed to basically be murdered.
Right.
And so all the Jews were like, all right now.
Right. So they got all their stuff and they started slaying people. They got all their enemies, all of their foes, everything. They started dragging everybody, and they win against everybody that tries to come up against them, right? And then also the king decides to make Mordecai the right-hand man, so he's now in Haman's place. And Queen Esther is still looking just as beautiful,
graceful,
just sitting on the throne next to her man or whatever, next to her boo, you know. And the king is they're all thriving. But this story pretty much is a story about grace, because it really shows how God works in all facets of our life, right?
Oh, and another thing. So basically, to decide what day that Haman would want the Jews to be murdered or whatever, he threw lots, which is basically like this day would kind of be like dice. You throw dice and you pick a number. So basically, he threw lots to say like, to see which day he would do it on. And so that day that, you know, he threw lots to see what random day the Jews would just be casually murdered, they started using that day as a day of celebration.
Right. For basically having Queen Esther save them, and for allowing them to not only be saved and not perish or whatever, but to fight and protect themselves, and winning pretty much against all of their enemies, all of their foes. And so, that it was just like a really beautiful story about the inner workings of God, even in place of people who have not really been doing something that's morally right per se. Like, we see a lot of drunkenness, a lot of violence, a lot of, just a lot of things that are just, the characters are not the most perfect characters, right? But those who don't really express God in the way that they speak they still yet are expressing a nature or a character of God in which they're believing in, which is righteousness and justice and honor.
We even see, like, in the story that there's even a part where I think it was after Mordecai and Esther had that conversation. Esther was basically told Mordecai before he left, like, tell everybody back home that to start fasting, and I thought it was kind of like, I thought it was interesting about how they were fasting, and usually, like, in Christianity, fasting is used to, like, basically as, like, I guess you could say, like, a sacrifice to God, or, like, a symbolization of you setting aside your flesh to seek God.
Right.
So, like, fasting for us would be, like, you can go on, like, a 12-hour fast or a 24-hour fast, and you can just maybe just give up that cheeseburger you have every 12 p.m. on a Sunday.
Right.
And, just drink some water and go study your Bible or whatever. So that's usually used, from what I know, in Christianity to, like, put aside your flesh and to seek God. So I thought it was interesting how in a story that doesn't directly mention God, that so many, like,
aspects of God are in the midst of it.
Yeah, so many, like, biblical principles and biblical morals are constantly seen within it.
Right. So basically, through the story of Esther, we see how God was giving grace to Esther, to the Jews and everything like that, Right. Even in the midst of people plotting things against them and their enemies trying to come up against them and them pretty much being like the lowest of the lows, God yet showed grace onto them, and showed grace to Esther and Mordecai and all of the inner workings of all the characters in this story, pretty much.
Right.
And he blesses the Jews with celebration, with honor, and with praise, and the ability to live and testify and tell the story of how God pretty much saved them, And so, yeah, that's pretty much the story of Esther, and
yes,
that's the story of grace, showing grace unto others, even though they might not deserve it,
Yeah, and also, like, I feel like that personally Esther showed me is that, oh yeah, sorry. After I read Esther, the Holy Spirit spoke to me, and I wrote it down. And he basically said to me, if God gives grace to worldly people, how much more grace will he give to his child?
Right.
Yeah, so if God had enough grace for these people who didn't necessarily, like,
speak his name, acknowledge him,
like, or worship him directly, at least in this story, if God was having grace on these people, who weren't necessarily, like, at least specifically mentioned as women or men of God,
right?
If he had grace on them, how much more grace will he have for somebody that does have a heart for God,
right?
That is seeking him, that is trusting in him, that is believing in him. Right. And I felt like that really ministered to me specifically, because this week I kind of had these thoughts like, God, you're so big, you're so powerful, like, you're just God, and, like, you don't need anything. You don't need us here. You don't need us to be alive, Right. And I was telling Naiya the other day, like, it's kind of scary to know, because it's like God could just throw all of us away one day and be like, I don't want to deal with you no more. Bye. Right? And nobody can do anything about it.
Right.
And so I was like, I don't know. I wasn't scared of God, but I was like, it's a scary thought to know that, like, God could just, change his mind, and who could do anything about it? Like, right. Nobody.
But yet he shows grace.
Yeah, but yet he shows grace. Yet he, like, still decides to love us and to care for us, even though he can literally just throw us all away today.
Right.
And I feel like God was really like, and that was like one thing I felt like I kept feeding myself. And for some reason, like I had also been reading a little bit of Revelation this week, and I was thinking about like, dang, like eternity. It's such a long time. Like it's not even
it's not a concept you can literally fathom in your mind.
You can't wrap it around your mind, and so it's like, what if somewhere in that eternity, which is weird because it's eternity, but what if somewhere in that eternity, like God just decides, I don't want this anymore, throw them all away, you know? And so the Holy Spirit was basically talking to me, and he was like, if God didn't want basically y'all around, like if God didn't want you guys, don't you think he would throw you away in your sinful self instead of throwing you away in your perfect self, in your whole being?
Right. You think he would really wait until you guys have entered eternity and glory and chose him? You went through all of this and then threw away the perfect spirit he created you to be? Like, it doesn't make sense, you know? And God is a God of order. He's a God of organization. It just...
Right, so he's like, God didn't go through all this pain just to throw y'all away.
Like we said in other videos, if I wanted y'all to die for your own sins, I would have done it.
Right.
You know, if I had a feeling that I was going to just throw y'all away anyway, I wouldn't have had my son die on the cross for y'all.
Right, and so I really had to allow God to minister to me about his grace, about his love for his people. And it's just a hard concept to grasp because a lot of times we think like, oh, if you're so powerful, if you're so like, if you have so much status, so much money, so much whatever, it doesn't even have to be like necessarily God, but it's like,
right,
you see somebody that's held as, you know, generally of more importance, and you're like, dang, like you're so important, you know, why would you want me? Why would you notice me? Why would you give attention to me? And it's like, God just had to tell me, like, I'm not, you know, human, first of all. I'm not just, my love is perfect.
Yeah.
My grace is perfect. My patience is perfect. And I was watching this sermon, and this girl was basically talking about how God has more than enough patience for you.
Right.
You know, and so she was talking about, and it really ministered to me about how she was like, you know, you shouldn't be walking on eggshells in your Christian walk, being like, if I make one more mistake, God's gonna punish me. If I make one more mistake, God's gonna leave me. Like, this is it. This is the one. Like, he's gone, and whatever. And she was basically preaching about how God has more than enough patience for your mistakes. He has more than enough patience for your problems. He has more than enough patience for your mental health. He has more than enough patience for your physical health.
Right.
Like, he has so much patience. His patience is literally perfect. And sometimes I think...
And his love is absolutely unfailing.
Right. And sometimes I think where maybe some people, including me, mess up is we think about what we would do if we were in God's shoes. Like, dang, if I was God... You know,
yeah, I would.
I was dealing with somebody like me, I would be like, "Yo, you crazy? I'm out of here."
Right, it's a wrap. Get away.
But I think that's a mistake we make because we constantly forget that God is not like us. Thank God.
Thank the Lord.
He's not like us. He's not human. He's not imperfect. You know.
Right.
And even when he does get, you know, not angry, but even when he does like feel like, all right, now it's time to get it together, he doesn't do it in a way that's like out of hatred or out of like him wanting to see you hurt. He still does it in a way where it's like, you know you were wrong, but it's also he corrects you in a way where it's still loving, to where he still finds a way to give you grace. He still finds a way to give you mercy and to give you another chance even after he's like let you know like this wasn't right.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I definitely do think it's a testament also to us in our lives. You know, like Lonnie said, if you are in a position of honor or praise, if you are that person who has the status, has the money, or whatever it is, I think this is very much like an example of God letting you know that you are also to give grace. You are also to give mercy. Even if you are just a person of influence, which is something me and Lonnie talk about a lot, you are to be that person that humbles yourself and allows your heart to be a heart of serving others. Even as Paul said in one of our other videos that we talked about in explaining, what were we explaining when we were talking about Paul? Do you remember?
We were explaining, basically, I think it was joy.
I think it was joy, yeah. But there was a part in there where Paul pretty much says that you are to empty yourself of honor. You are to empty yourself of praise and pretty much take on a spirit of humility and a spirit of serving others, just as Jesus served others here on earth. And that is also a form of grace. Gifting somebody with their presence, or gifting somebody of your presence and your love, your compassion, or whatever, if you are a person of influence or a person of esteem or anything like that, also could be you showing grace onto somebody who might not deserve it as well. And you are able to be in a position to completely change that person's life and influence their relationship with God and how they see themselves and how they operate in other people's lives and showing compassion to others and forgiving themselves and all of that other stuff, And so grace really, just, it goes a long way and it spreads, It is a harvest. It is very much, it's very fruitful, in how you spread it and it just being spread into others. Because it's just so rare,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was just going to say and you don't even have to be a person of influence to necessarily give grace to somebody.
No.
Because I feel like the Holy Spirit just reminded me. We were at McDonald's and we were going through the drive-thru and I saw this man that looked less fortunate, and I was like, I prayed to God and I was like, God, I pray that you allow him to eat something today, allow him to just give him what he needs,
Mm-hmm.
And so I heard God tell me go feed him then. And I was like, ooh. So I was like, okay. So I got him a cheeseburger and some fries, and so we came back around, and I remember feeling nervous, because I don't know, I don't know where he is mentally. I don't know if he's gonna go off on me, if he's so I'm on edge because I'm all right now, Lord, I'm nervous because I don't know if he's crazy, if he's nice, whatever,
right.
I don't know, because you have those stereotypes about homeless people being crazy, yelling out of their mind, just weird people. I feel like that's a stereotype about homeless people, and so especially in California. So yeah, and so I remember going up to him with the food, and I was like, hey, I was like, hi, we got you some food, we don't know if you're hungry.
At first he was very socially awkward,
Yeah, at first
it was really funny because he was kind of, I don't know if you guys have seen that meme with the black kid and he's he's looking on the side of his eye and he's like,
no, for real,
that's really how he was looking at us, are you talking to me,
Yeah, he's turning his head away from us, and it was kind of in a way, he did it in a way where it seemed like he was trying to make himself small. He
was ashamed.
Yeah, and so I was I don't know, for some reason that kind of hit me in my heart, and I was and I don't know, it kind of made me feel bad for thinking about the stereotypes, thinking about somebody outside of them as a person, because
right.
There might be some homeless people that are crazy and aggressive, but at the end of the day, everybody is a person,
right?
And not every person acts the same just because they're in the same situation as somebody else,
exactly.
And so that, I feel like that really humbled me, and it allowed me to show grace to that person, because homeless people also, it makes sense, because homeless people probably also get a lot of stuff thrown at them. They probably get yelled at. They probably get called all kinds of names under the sun.
Stomped out, right? Just
Yeah, they
disrespected as they're literally treated less than people.
Yeah, and so he probably was like, probably as scared of us because he was like, well, what are they
gonna do? Right? Are these people crazy? Are they trying to mock me? Are they trying to make fun of me? Like, are they trying to make an example out of me? Or some people, they'll record when they're doing things for homeless people. Like, am I just somebody to show that you're a good person, you know?
Right. And so I, you know, I felt like I started to have a little bit more compassion for him because I saw he was like, you know, he was nervous. And I don't know if he was abused. I don't know if he's like gone through something to where it's like, you know, being around people or being confronted triggers him or whatever.
Right.
But I wanted to be sensitive to that. So I was like, I felt like I started, you know, softening my approach. And I was like, you know what, like, you know, we bought you this food, you know, I don't know if you're hungry, but like, you know,
we're just gonna leave it here,
yeah,
right?
we're just gonna leave it. Like, go ahead and take
and take it.
And so he was like, well, I'm not hungry right now, but I'll definitely eat it later or whatever. And so I guess he said he was like sick, so he couldn't like eat.
Yeah, in that moment when we gave him the food. So I was like, okay. But it was funny because we got in the car and I looked in my rearview mirror and he was like tearing up them fries. And I was like, aw. And Lonnie was like, what? And I was like, he's eating the fries. Yeah. And I was like, I'm sure he might be sick because he's so hungry, you know? So, like, but, you know, it was a very humbling experience. Yeah. And showing grace to him in that moment was definitely, you know, it not only affects the other person, but it affects you. It makes you feel very, very good to do something that the Lord has told you to do, to show grace onto somebody the way that the Lord shows grace onto us.
Yeah.
You know?
And not only that, but it feels good to know that, like, you know, even if you can't feed every homeless person in California or every homeless person in the United States, like, to know that you know, that God used you, or, you know, you had the resources to be able to give somebody their dinner that night, or to give somebody like a little bit of hope, you know, because that might have been the thing that, you know, was the thing that made him either really sick or be able to get nourishment that day. Like, you don't know what people are going through.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with, like, the same thing in us giving food. It's the same thing with giving something else that somebody might need. Showing grace to somebody could not only be grace, it could be forgiveness, it could be compassion, it could be love, it could be a listening ear, it could be understanding. And you are basically giving that person something that they need. You are nourishing that other person's spirit in a way where it's literally so healthy and so transforming, I think, to their body and to them just being able to function and know that, wow, like, even if I haven't been shown love, you know, I know that this was love from this person. And I don't know what that was that I got from that person, but it felt like so good, you know, and where can I get that, you know? Where can I get more of that? And that's when you can really tell somebody about God, tell somebody about Jesus and how much, you know, Jesus loves them, and how God has really changed your life, you know, and influenced you in a way where you can be a blessing unto others, and that they can not only receive those blessings, but be a blessing unto others themselves and continue to get that nourishment that they need, that nutrients in their spirit, you know?
Yeah. And I definitely wish that a lot more people were, and especially, I think it's especially a problem in California because this is like, you know, the Hollywood, everybody thinks like, you know, they better than you if they have a certain status type thing. And it's like, I wish people here were a little bit more like, I don't know if the word is humble, but like, just hospitable, I guess you could say. They were a little bit more like friendly, because I'm naturally like, I'm not the type of person that like, if you walk by me, I'll ignore you, or like if we're obviously like making contact or whatever, like I'll just act like you weren't there. Like, I try my best, you know, every person, like if we're walking on a sidewalk and we're like coming towards each other, I try to be like, hi, or good morning, or like smile at least, you know. And I notice a lot of times you smile at people out here and they either act like they don't
they don't know you, or you don't exist, or
they just like look at you and they
look at you really crazy, really sideways, like,
it's like,
how dare you?
Like, I just said hi.
Yeah.
Like, I was just trying to recognize like your presence. I'm sorry. And so I wish we had a little bit more of like that, like more of like a community sense. Not saying you have to be friends with everybody you meet, but like just being like, hey, how you doing? Because sometimes you don't know what people are going through. You might get that smile, or you might get that, hey, how was your day? That like, you know, boosts your day. That makes you feel like, that might make somebody feel like, well, maybe my day like wasn't that bad, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe it's all right, you know?
Yeah. Most definitely.
And it's like when you get that compliment from like another woman or another person, and they're like, oh my god, girl, you look so cute today. You don't know that person, and it just lights up your whole day. You're like, oh, I look cute today.
Go facts.
Like that. I feel like that's literally how it is.
Literally. That grace, that confidence, that compassion, that compliment, whatever, y'all, it will literally, nobody will ever forget it, you know? Most definitely, compassion, yes. Nobody will ever forget it. So please show grace unto others. Do unto others what you would have done unto you, you know? Empty yourself of your pride, of your, you know, of your own status, of your own influence, whatever, and serve others in a way where you can give grace unto them. You can have compassion and kindness and just love on others, you know? Because other people definitely need it. And it's not only for others, but it's definitely for yourself. Show grace unto yourself. Fight spiritual battles for yourself, for the love of yourself, because you are a temple and God does love you, you know? And
even if you don't get what you need from that person after showing them grace, just know that you'll definitely receive it from God. You know, because even if that person can't give you what you need in return, God will definitely find a way to give it back to you. And I feel like that's one thing I've really learned through, because I don't know if you guys saw my testimony video, but I always used to say, like, when I was younger, like, God, I'm always nice to people, even when they're mean to me, so I don't understand why all this bad stuff is happening. I'm not a bad person.
Right.
And I feel like over time, I really saw the fruit of me always giving people my best, even when they didn't necessarily deserve it. I think I saw, like, the fruit of God blessing me for that in other areas, you know?
Yeah.
Of my life. And I feel like that's definitely what God will do, even if that person can't repay you for it, or if that person isn't in the place to recognize the grace that they're giving you, or you're giving them, that God will definitely repay you for it in whatever way. And it's better anyway to get it from God.
Yeah, it's 10 times better to get it from God, you know? And so, yeah, have grace unto others. Have grace for yourself. Even if you make mistakes, you're not perfect. You're just a person, you know? Yeah. And God still loves you. And he definitely still wants to fill you up with all of the compassion, kindness, grace, love, joy in this whole world. Not only because of you, but also so that you can spread it unto others. So that is it for today. That's our study on grace. And so we definitely hope, we pray that this touched you guys, that this changed you guys, that you guys will go out and you will give grace to yourselves and to others, that you allow God to fill you up with grace as well.
Yes, find somebody to just find somebody to serve today. Find somebody that you can do better by, you know, whether it's a aunt, uncle, mom, dad, friend, dog.
Right.
Just find something.
Just find something. So did you want to pray this out?
Yeah. All right. God, I present me and everybody under the sound of my voice on your throne, God, just thanking you for another day where you woke us up, God. Thanking you another day where you breathe your breath of life into our bodies, God, and gave everybody another chance to get things right, God. It gave everybody the grace of waking up, the grace of letting them come to this video and giving them a chance to repent, God, giving them a chance to turn their lives around and to let them know that you are there for them, God, even when they aren't there for you, God. You are still reaching out, God, when they aren't reaching out for you, God. I thank you for just the grace that we receive, God, through your Son dying on the cross, God. We thank you that we can have our sins forgiven anytime we want, God. We thank you for the access the access that we have to you through your Holy Spirit. And we thank you that we're just able to establish a deeper relationship with you that couldn't have been accomplished if it wasn't for your grace on us, if it wasn't for your mercy on us, God, and if it wasn't for your deep and vast love for your people. So, God, we thank you for just giving us the gift of life, giving us the gift of salvation, God, giving us the gift of being able to have relationship with you and to receive the vast blessings that you have for us, God, and to receive healing from you, Lord. God, I pray for a special protection over everybody under the sound of my voice as they go through their next week, God. I speak joy over their lives this week. I speak peace, God, and I speak love, and I speak grace, God. I pray that everybody under the sound of my voice is given an opportunity next week to give grace to somebody, that is given an opportunity next week to do something nice for someone, and I pray that everybody takes that opportunity and that you use it as a seed for them to come back to you and learn more about the grace that you want to give them in return. And God, we love you and we thank you for another blessed week and another great word. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, so that is it. Ooh, we have a lot of things that we're doing today. We hope that you guys definitely have a lot of things that you're doing. Please show grace, have grace, show love, have love. And God not only loves you, but we love you guys too. So we will definitely see you guys next time with our next topic for Friday.
Yeah, guys, we'll try to be here next week on 3 p.m.
Like we said that we were
like
going.
we said, but today was just like we got a lot going on today.
Yeah.
So,
but still, we will still be here on Friday regardless of the time. You know, at least that is consistent. Every Friday we will be here, regardless of the time.
All right, we love y'all.
We love y'all. Stay blessed.
Don't forget to join our YouTube and our Discord.
Yes, Pneulifeministries for both.
And if you're on YouTube, join us on Twitch. Link will be in the bio.
Okay.
See y'all later.
See you guys.